We've been bringing, of course, this week plenty of grilling of Phil Lowe, the RBA governor. That continues today, and we'll continue to dip in as he's justifying essentially his vision for interest rate hikes, and a few more of them are on the way, it seems. We're going to see as well the effect on the economy. We're seeing it already, unemployment ticking up yesterday. Joining me now for more on this, Effie Zahos, Editor-at-Large with Canstar. Thanks so much for your time. I guess just your thoughts first of all on Phil Lowe. So much has been spoken around interest rate hikes, where the economy's headed, and any information you can shed on sort of the stress testing of the economy, because this is the big thing Phil Lowe's asked about. How much are these going to hurt households? You know, how much higher do you need to go? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. We saw ANZ just come out as well and revisit its forecast. So it's saying now, along with NAB, that it's going to peak at that 4.1%. It also said that what I found interesting was 70% of its home loan books had been impacted by these rate hikes, but yet not really seeing a pullback on spending. We got the employment numbers yesterday showing that we are seeing some effect, of course. The wage data next week for me would be interesting read, because all these will help gauge as to how long are we going to see these rate hikes continue. I don't think households will see, initially I was hoping that the end of this year we'll see some reprieve, but a lot of the forecasts now are happening perhaps in 2024, early 2024, where we may see a turnaround. It really does come down to what this data continues to show. Do we stop spending? Have we stopped spending? And unfortunately, at this stage, it's still showing that the RBA will be continuing to hike rates.
It will, but what's interesting around those forecasts you mentioned is a lot of the banks are predicting by the end of next year, which I know will seem a long way off for households, we could see interest rates maybe even lower than they are now, so back in the sort of low threes. So for households sort of going, how do I weather this? There's no guarantees, as we've found out with Phil Lowe and his forecasts. But it doesn't mean we're going to see, you know, it's stuck with a 4 in front of it for years after.
Oh, absolutely not. And the thing that households I know are juggling now also is that, okay, how do I survive these next 12 months, say, and are looking at the possibility, do I lock in? I know that can sound quite absurd when we're talking mortgage cliffs here, but you've got to remember those that did lock in 2% have had a great run so far. You can't always pick it, you don't always get it right, but there are 3-year fixed rates now where you don't pay a premium to lock in. By that I mean that they are cheaper than the average standard variable rate. In fact, by as much as 3 rate hikes cheaper. So it's something consumers need to have a look at their own situation and see, how do I navigate the next 12 months that I can actually stay?
Sometimes about risk mitigation that you go, well, maybe it'll get better than that, but look, that level is okay for my household, so I'll do that. And sometimes they split it, you know, some variable, some fixed as well. Interested in your thoughts when we hear from the banks, and we had Anna Bligh on this week from Banks Association, and they say, well, look, if you're in trouble, contact us. Banks are very wary of this situation. But is there a bit of a penalty here often for people? Because if you switch, for example, to interest only, banks can put you back on a so-called default rate. If you were getting a discount before, you're paying a higher rate. Is this the sort of thing the banks do, but they don't tell you as loudly, if you like?
Well, these are the things that banks will be now looking at. I mean, they did actually do a good job where we were when we're in lockdown and we're in the thick of everything and bringing out these rescue packages. Essentially, those packages would be what would be done if you're under financial hardship. And as you talk about interest only, extend the term. I mean, the reality is anybody who has refinanced over the past month or so, or year, actually, we've seen record numbers of people refinancing. You've probably increased your term without you even knowing it. You might have had 25 years, you go to the new lender, they roll over that loan for 30 years. So you actually have increased your term. All of these solutions do cost a little more in the long run. They are Band-Aid solutions, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what it takes to get you through this period we were just talking about, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you do go on interest only, if you do put your hand up and say harm in financial hardship, you shouldn't have to be penalised anymore with the interest on that. But interest is compounding. So in a way, it is hurting you more.
Make sure you get the fine detail from the banks. Always push for the best deal possible, of course, if you can do so. The final one on savings rates. So, you know, a third of us in the country have mortgages. A third of people are sitting there trying to earn their retirement in part from savings rates. What's been interesting about these is they haven't gone up at the same rate. And having a look at them, it seems the 3 and 6 month deposits in particular are way below the cash rate on average. What's happening here? Are the banks going to get a bit of a clip when this is looked into by the ACCC?
Well, look, I find the timing very interesting that we had today ANZ increase its rates on some of its savers by a whopping 1% off the Fed hike. So the Fed hike 0.25, yet they've gone up 1%. NAB also tripled its hikes up on some of its saving accounts. So this is all wonderful. I just wonder, is it because the ACCC has actually officially said in looking into the saving accounts? The big banks have had a wonderful time in the sense of in the past, with rates rising, putting them onto homeowners. For savers, unfortunately, weren't enjoying it as much. So this is good that the ACCC is looking into this. Don't get me wrong, we all want strong banks. Of course we do. Whether indirectly or directly, we are invested somewhere with the bank. You super. But what's interesting now is that what I hope the ACCC does is it's not just a case of our banks increasing the rates by as much and as fast as they are with home loans, but how are they increasing it and on what products? Because that concerns me a lot. A lot of these rate hikes are actually on promotional rates or bonus rates, and the way they're structured. Yeah, it makes it very sticky, what I call sticky, in the sense that they want your transaction account. You've got to put a certain amount of money in there. You've got to do a number of transactions in order to get these bonus rates. That makes it sticky, and that locks in their customers. And I guess they want that if they want to preserve their margins, because these are some curveballs that the banks are facing.